Hi VC, Dave back with you. We are now on to 1974 in Freddie Big Star 1000's Gimme 10 1970s series. 1974 is, well, it's a very difficult year because it's just absolutely jam-packed with great albums. Now, it has a particular significance for me because that is the year I was born. I was born in January of '74, so pretty much all the albums I'm going to show you came out not too long after I popped into the world. Um, so, but it was a very there's several which I knew I definitely wanted to show, but as I picked my 10, I realised that there were an absolute load of albums which I really wanted to show also, which I would have to leave out. So I'm going to cheat a little bit, and these are the albums which did not make the top 10, but which I'm going to just briefly show anyway. Billy Cobham, Crosswinds, Tom Duel 2 live in London, Popol Vuh, Einschlager and Sieben Jagger, and I forgot to show this in my Krautrock update, but yeah, so sorry I couldn't fit it into Tangerine Dream, Rubicon, Klaus Schulze, Black Dance, PFM, The World Became the World. I think that came out in '74. I'm not on it. I could be wrong. Could have come up in '73. Oh, this one. Okay, so those are not my top 10. They are not my choices for the Gimme 10. So these now are the choices for Gimme 10. I watched Freddie's video earlier. I was hoping that he wouldn't show too many. I already have these 10 picked out, so I was hoping that there wouldn't be too many on his list that I'm going to show. But as it turned out, there's two, including the very first one, which I'm going to show, and that is Meet the Residents. Now, the version that Freddie showed has a different cover art to this. This is the original cover art which graced this excuse me, which graced this album when it was released in 1974. This desecrated kind of tribute to Meet the Beatles. Now, I think I might be wrong, but I think the version that Freddie showed was a reissue from about '77 or thereabouts, which had a different cover art. But this is a 1988 repress on white vinyl, and this reinstated the original artwork. So, oh yeah, that's the I think that's something similar to that was used on the. Anyway, enough of that. Technically speaking, when this album was released in 1974, you could probably fit into this room the amount of people who actually bought it or listened to it. With the Residents, they really started kind of gaining recognition, maybe kind of in the late '70s when albums like this were reissued and they started gaining a following. But this was released in '74. Hardly anybody noticed or hardly anyone was listening, but it would go on as over the years to gain a larger audience. So, you know, as Freddie said, this is just Beefheart meets free jazz meets kind of mix it all up in a kind of a crazy mixing bowl, and you have the Residents. So Meet the Residents first on the list, and And the second on the list, I'll just get this out of it because Freddie also showed this nearly on the beach. Freddie kind of went into this in fairly good detail, but you know, part of Neil Young's Ditch trilogy. I will add that, as Freddie said, it is, well, it was, but and it still kind of still is a pretty hard one to find. This is an original UK pressing with the printed kind of wallpaper inner, and this wasn't cheap basically, but because it is difficult enough one to find, but yeah. So yeah. Yeah, I won't add any more to it. Okay, Frank Zappa. So apostrophe, his contribution to 74. Okay, so this was recorded as part of the same session as Overnight Sensation, which came out the previous year. So this was recorded in 73 but released in 74, which is why I'm showing it. All right. So yeah, Don't You Eat That Yellow Snow and Stinkfoot. Yeah, this is one of my personal favorites because this was one of the earliest. I think probably the first Zappa album that I listened to in full many years ago. Okay, now Kevin Coyne, he showed him his stuff a few times. This is called Blame It on the Night, which was released on the Virgin label. As I've said before about Kevin Coyne, he's quite hard to categorise. Yes, but you could call it art rock. Art rock, but kind of in a different way to say Roxy Music. There's a bit of a Brecht influence, maybe a little bit like a little bit of a Incredible Alex Harvey band. Maybe is kind of the closest comparison that I can think of, but when it comes to Kevin Coyne, but there is that kind of darkness, that kind of dark black humour and kind of theatrical side, but great songwriter, very, very underrated, I think. And yeah, so Blame It on the Night by Kevin Coyne. Speaking of great songwriters, I Want to See the Bright Lights Tonight by Richard and Linda Thompson, husband and wife duo. Yeah, so this is really up there with their best, and it has that iconic cover photography. So yeah, so the great folk rock album, and the title track is just fantastic, and it's you know, and they work so well as a duo on this, so definitely, you know, definitely have to include this in the 74 top 10. Okay, so in 73 Tread, I featured Banana Moore by Kevin Ayers. Kevin Ayers, as I stated, was in a very early lineup of Soft Machine. He released this in 1974, and this is called The Confessions of Dr. Dream and Other Stories. Now, there's quite a lineup on this. There's contributions from Mike Oldfield, oh yeah, Nico, who I mentioned in relation to the 73 contribution. She contributes vocals on basically this. Yeah, so this is how to describe this album. Kind of very kind of surrealistic, a bit of a Canterbury vibe. Perhaps quite a lot of similarities with John Cale. I was trying to think who else is on this. So so side 2, The Confessions of Dr. Dream, which is kind of the big long track, kind of divided into 3 parts, or sorry, 4 parts rather. So I'm probably not describing this album very well, but trust me, it is worthy of inclusion in the 74 top 10. Okay, so there's a bit of a link with the next album, and that is The End by Nico. Nico, who also featured on the Kevin Ayers. So this is a solo album by her, released in 74. Extremely dark, very, very dark album. There's an extended cover of the Doors track at the end, which has particular poignance, her, because Nico, as you all know, she was involved with Jim Morrison, romantically involved, on the Island label, and also there's quite a lineup of musicians on this. Brian Eno contributes, plays synthesizer. Also Phil Manzanera, John Cale also appears on this, and so very, very dark, very kind of gothic, kind of almost proto-gothic, as a lot of Nico's solo work was. So The End by Nico. Now, the next one up, I was kind of slightly surprised because Freddie Big Star. It's always kind of interesting to see what he will show and what's he going to show as part of his. I was kind of expecting him to show this one, but that is Magma. Contarcos, and this is the only Magma album I actually have, by the way. So Magma, French progressive group, active, quite long running, active since the early 70s, and I think they may be together in some form or other. So founded by Christian Vander, drummer. So yeah, Magma, it's like progressive rock, but not progressive rock in the style of, say, Yes or Emerson, Lake and Palmer. This is very strongly influenced by free jazz. There's actually one track which is dedicated to John Coltrane, and Magma are quite notorious for singing in this kind of made up language, which kind of, yeah, there's all kind of stuff involving aliens and kind of other life forms, and this language is basically their albums are kind of concepts, really, dealing with this kind of alien race, and this kind of made up language which they sing in is kind of part of that. So but yeah, it's mind-blowing stuff, and so much of this is the only one I have by them, and yeah, their albums are not easy to find, and they tend to be very expensive. But yeah, so kind of you could kind of regard bands like Magma as kind of the French equivalent of what was coming out of Germany at the time. Very kind of experimental, and just to kind of playing around with the conventions of music and pushing it as far as it could go. But anyway, that's enough. Next group, another kind of a French connection. French via Canterbury. So this is Gong, you. Yeah, of course. So sadly, not too long ago, lost David Allen, and yeah. So yeah, so this is their contribution to 74 U. Very, very spacey. There's not quite so much of this kind of a usual kind of whimsical lyrics about pixies and so forth. This is very spacey. A lot of it is instrumental, kind of proto-ambient, and of course the contribution of Steve Hillage guitar plays a major part in that. I'm going to finish up with yes, I know this is kind of an obvious choice for 74, but I simply have to include Bowie Diamond Dogs. This, okay, it's very difficult to pick a favourite Bowie album of the 70s, but this, I don't know, this has a particular resonance for me. I spent a lot of, in the late 90s, I spent a lot of time listening to this. This was on cassette at the time, because I taped it from a CD, which I rented out of our local music library. As you'll all know, it's a concept. Well, it was meant as a concept album about based on George Orwell's 1984, but Bowie was blocked by the estate of George Orwell, so it's kind of still kind of has elements of that. But yeah, this as I said, I can't really pick a favorite Bowie album from this period, but this is one which I can play again and again and again. So that's it. That's 1974, which has a particular reasons for me, because it's the year I was born, and that's my top 10. So I'll be looking forward to seeing everybody else's, and till next time, thanks for watching.